You want to hit the clicker there again, Adam? Yeah. Okay, there we go. Well, good morning. Good to virtually see everyone this morning. I know we can't physically see everybody for Bible class during this time, but it's good to see everybody virtually. I guess that's the best we can do right now. So at least we have this avenue. We can we can have Bible class virtually. So we're thankful for the technology that we have with it, for the time and the things that we're dealing with. So we'll continue our study this morning with the Messianic prophecies of Jesus and their fulfillments. Hopefully this has been a good study for everybody so far. I've enjoyed this study so far, and hopefully we can continue to learn a little bit more and continue to grow as Christians. So before we get started in our Bible class this morning, let's have a word of prayer. Dear most kind, gracious Father in heaven, so grateful for this day you bless us with, Father. We're grateful for this Lord's Day and the opportunity we have to have this Bible class this morning, Father, and have a time of Bible study. We can study a portion of your Word, and we're grateful for your Word, Father, and that we have it today as we do, and pray that we'll always take the opportunities to study it and learn from it as best we can, and grateful for all the blessings that you've given us, Father, and as we're mindful of our Independence Day in this country this weekend, we're thankful for the freedoms that we have in this country, Father, and all the blessings that we have, and especially the freedom to worship you openly, and pray that this country will continue to enjoy these freedoms, and pray that for those countries across the world that may not have these freedoms, Father, we pray that something can be said or done that they can enjoy these freedoms as well, Father. And we're also mindful of the greater independence, greater freedom that we have, and that's the freedom from sin that your Son made possible for us when He gave His life for us, Father, and became the perfect sacrifice for sin on our behalf. And we're grateful for His sacrifice and for your love and your grace and your mercy, Father. And pray you forgive us for any sins or missed in our life, and pray you continue blessings upon the Church of Valdosta, Father, and all that it does. And pray you bless us as we go into this study this morning. Help us to study with open minds and open hearts, and pray you bless us as we go to worship you here shortly, Father. Help us to do everything in ways pleasing to you. In Jesus' name, amen. So for a review of our lesson so far, one more time, Adam. So a review for our lessons up to this point, we've looked at Christ as the seed of a woman, or at least the prophecies of Christ as the seed of a woman, the promised seed of Abraham, the promised seed of Isaac, and the promised seed of Jacob. This morning we're going to look at Jesus as the prophecy that Jesus will descend from the tribe of Judah. So our prophecy verse this morning will come from Genesis chapter 49, verse 10. So this says, Genesis 49, verse 10 says, "The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be." So this is our prophecy verse that we'll be looking at this morning. But let's back up a little bit here in Genesis chapter 41, or Genesis chapter 49, to get the context of this, so we can see what's going on. I'm going to start in verse 1, and we'll read back through verse 10 of Genesis 49. "And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity, and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, then defiledst thou it. He went up to my couch. Simeon and Levi are brethren, instruments of cruelty are in their habitations. O my soul, come not thou into their secret, unto their assembly mine honor be not thou united. For in their anger they slew a man, and in their self-will they dig down a wall. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I will divide them in Jacob, and scatter them in Israel. Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So in Genesis chapter 49, we see that Jacob is nearing the end of his life, and then before he dies, he calls all 12 of his sons together and tells each of them specific things about themselves or things that will happen to them. So in verse number 1, it says, he shall tell them things that will befall them in the last days. So Jacob is telling some of his children good things. So Judah receives good news, and then you see Reuben, Simeon, and Levi receive bad news. So Jacob is given a prophecy, per se, about the lives of each of his children. So that continues on through the rest of Genesis chapter 49, and then Jacob dies at the end of chapter 49. So he's at the end of his life, and he's sort of passing these blessings or cursings on to his children. So verses 8 through 10 tells us the whole portion of the blessing that Judah received. Just read that again. It says, Judah, thou art he whom thy brethren shall praise. Thy hand shall be in the neck of thine enemies. Thy father's children shall bow before thee. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, thou art gone up. He stooped down, he couched as a lion, and as an old lion, who shall rouse him up? The scepter shall not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh come, and unto him shall the gathering of the people be. So verse 8 seems to imply that the tribe of Judah will have supremacy over the other tribes and over the enemies of the nations of Israel. It talks about, your brethren shall praise thee, your hand shall be on the neck of your enemies. So it seems to imply that Judah is going to have some supremacy over his brethren and also over the enemies of the nation of Israel. So it seems logical to me that this supremacy of the tribe of Judah would relate to King David. So we know of King David and the many military victories he had, and how great and mighty he was as a king, and how great his kingdom was. David was also from the tribe of Judah, because we know Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, but he was of David's lineage as well. So David was from the tribe of Judah. So to me, it makes sense that the supremacy of Judah would be related to King David and the supremacy of his kingdom. Verse number 9 refers to Judah as a lion's whelp. A whelp is not a word that we're probably very accustomed with today. I know I had to look it up to see what it means. So Strong defines this word as a cub. So he's saying Judah is a lion's cub. So what is meant by referring to Judah as a lion's cub? I think that's a pretty interesting analogy. Referring to Judah as a lion's cub, and it takes a little bit of thought to understand what's meant by that. So I think it means that in a sense, for Judah, the best is yet to come. Judah is a cub, just a cub. For him, the best is yet to come. So we sometimes might refer to someone who is, late teens or early 20s as still a baby. As we get older, we refer to those young adults, late teens, early 20-somethings as, well, you're still a baby. Well, we know that they're actually not still a baby, obviously, but maybe in the terms of, your lifetime, you're still a baby, in that there's still a lot of experiences that are yet to come, right? So we understand that as you get older, there's a lot of things that you experience simply because you get older, whether it's marriage or jobs or, difficult decisions that come up. So we understand what we mean when we refer to someone, that's not necessarily a baby, and we refer to him as a baby. So even, I'm in my mid-30s, and sometimes I'm still referred to as a baby by those that are older than me. So we understand that analogy, I think, today by referring to someone, what it's meant from an experience or from a lifetime perspective. So we understand what that means. I think that it's sort of the similar thing here with Judah, meaning Jacob is telling Judah basically that there's still a lot to come for Judah and his descendants and for the tribe of Judah. I think this is similar to, again, there's a lot of good things to come for Judah. That's why he's just a cub. So we mentioned David. So ultimately, we know that the tribe of Judah is going to produce David and his mighty kingdom. And David will obviously leave his mark on the world. When you read and see about David's kingdom and then Solomon's kingdom, how great it was. And then as far as the Jewish culture, David is revered really highly. So David obviously came and left his mark on the world, but then ultimately Jesus will come through the tribe of Judah, who will actually save the world, right? So Jesus will definitely leave his mark on the world as well. So I think the next verse, verse number 10, tells us more about this. This would sort of be, in my opinion, maybe the climax of the blessing that Jacob has given to Judah. I think this refers to what says the scepter shall not depart from Judah. I think this refers to Judah's continuation as a nation, maybe Judah's continuation as a nation per se, as a people. So if we remember the Jewish history after Solomon, Israel split into two kingdoms, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. The northern kingdom was taken into Assyrian captivity around 721 BC, and then the southern kingdom is carried into Babylonian captivity around 587 BC. So when we think about the scepter, what does this mean that the scepter will not depart from Judah? So the northern kingdom was referred to as the kingdom of Israel. The southern kingdom was referred to as the kingdom of Judah. However, as far as I know, after the Assyrian captivity, there's not much more heard about from the northern kingdom. The history of that, as far as I know, there's not that much more mentioned about the northern kingdom. But the southern kingdom has a lot of history mentioned after the Babylonian captivity. So we've got quite a bit of history, during and after the Babylonian captivity. So we know the story of Daniel, and obviously we remember hearing those stories as children, learning about Daniel and the lion's den and all of those stories. We have the history of the return from the Babylonian captivity, and led by Zerubbabel, and then we have the books of the prophets after that. So I think the history of Judah has shown that the scepter did not depart from Judah because Judah seemed to maintain its organization as a people, at least. Its organization as a nation or as a people all the way into the time of Christ, at least. There was we call the faithful remnant, if I can get the word out, the faithful remnant that went back to rebuild Jerusalem. So I think that there was always some organization, some level of organization of Judah as a nation. To me, I think that's what this verse is referring to, that the scepter shall not depart from Judah. Next it says, nor a lawgiver from between his feet. Lawgiver here is defined by Strong's as to hack or engrave or to enact or prescribe, such as decree or govern. So we can see, the meaning to hack or engrave would be sort of like, engraving the law. Think maybe of God engraving the 10 Commandments on the stone. But the lawgiver is someone who enacts or prescribes or has a decree or some governing power. So we're told that Judah will basically always have a scepter and will always have a lawgiver. This is two things that Jacob is telling Judah. You'll always have a scepter and you'll always have a lawgiver. So we looked at how Judah will always have a scepter because It maintains its semblance as a nation or as an organization of people all the way to the time of Christ. And we can see that Judah always had a lawgiver because, at least through the Old Testament, we see the Old Testament prophets and their writings all the way through the end of the Old Testament. So we know that there was 400 silent years between the Old and New Testament. So we don't have any writings per se during that time period. But if we look at the New Testament, look at the Jewish people and their organization and kind of how they lived in the New Testament, there were obviously the elders of the people. We see the Sanhedrin several times in the New Testament. So there would have been bodies there per se that could enact or govern the people or give decrees to the people. We see that the apostles went before the Sanhedrin and they're told, to stop preaching Jesus to the people. So the Sanhedrin was obviously making decrees to the people and giving them, passing, I don't know if you'd say passing laws, but giving them, things to follow, rules to follow, I guess you could say. So I think we can see there was always some lawgiver in Judah, regardless if it was the prophets or the elders of the people or the Sanhedrin. There's always somebody who is considered maybe the expert or the person to follow, the leader of the people, and all that. So I think that fits well with what we're saying, where it says a lawgiver from between his feet. I think that fits well with the blessing there that Jacob gives Judah. That as far as we can tell, there was always some semblance of Judah as a nation, and there was always someone in authority or someone in a governing or decreeing capacity over Judah. So Jacob also tells him that the scepter shall not depart, and the lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes. So who is Shiloh? I think it's not a word that we hear very often. I think in the context we can, it seems obvious that it's most likely referring to Jesus, but it's not abundantly clear to me immediately upon reading this verse how is this applying to Jesus. So Shiloh means he whose it is and that which belongs to him. So Strong defines it as tranquil, or an epithet of the Messiah. And then Young's defines it as a description of Messiah as the Prince of Peace or as the seed of Judah. I guess the phrasing there, I think we can understand that this is a reference to Jesus. And from what I can tell, the people that are smarter than me as far as translating take this as a reference to the Messiah. But when it says, so the actual meaning of Shiloh being he's who it is, that which belongs to him, I think that that when we think about the salvation of the world, or the things that Jesus is going to bring into the world, and those things belong to him, right? Those are the things that's something only Jesus can give, and I think that this might make a little bit more sense as we move into the fulfillment part of this lesson. But I think as of right now, we'll leave it for what it is. Just say that he who it is and that which belongs to him is a reference to Jesus, and I think we'll see it a little bit clearer as we move into the fulfillment of this prophecy. But so this refers to Jesus as the Messiah. We can see through the history of the Jewish people, several years after Jesus' death, Jerusalem was destroyed, which we know Jesus foretold to the people. So before and especially after this time, we can see Judah losing its organization as a people, and we also see that there's no longer a lawgiver per se in Judah after this time. So we think about throughout the New Testament, you've got the New Testament, and then you've got the destruction of Jerusalem. So after this time where there's a time of evangelism, and then of course eventually when Jerusalem is destroyed, there's really that was the holy city of Jerusalem, right, to the Jewish people. So as we're moving through this, I think we can see God's providence through the spreading of the gospel in the New Testament, and then ultimately through the destruction of Jerusalem. There's really a lot less avenues for the Jewish religion after that. And if we look at, again, in reference to Jacob's blessing to Joseph, to Judah, that there's no longer a scepter in Judah, and also there's no longer a lawgiver. So I think that we can see how it makes sense this applies to Jesus, because we can kind of see, there's a change or an inflection point maybe in history once Jesus comes and the New Testament is put out and spreads to the world. We can see the ultimate demise of the Jewish religion that in at least in the state that it originally was, because Christianity has spread. So we can also see the face of Jesus in the last part of this verse, in my opinion, where it says, "And unto him shall the gathering of the people be." So we've mentioned quite a bit in this study already how the seed promise of Abraham came to us through Christ, and that all the nations of the earth have been blessed through Christ because of his sacrifice. So I think this phrase refers to the fact that Jesus will gather all of the world into his kingdom, and not just the people of Judah. So Judah will be blessed in that Christ will come out of Judah, but the entire human race, and then of course all of human history, will be blessed because of Jesus. So when it says, "Unto him shall the gathering of the people be," everybody's, the goal is for everybody to come to Jesus, and there's it's not just for the Jewish people, it's not just for the tribe of Judah, it's for the entire world. So that's our prophecy, that Jesus will descend from the tribe of Judah. When we look at the fulfillments, how was this prophecy fulfilled in the New Testament? So we can go back to Matthew chapter 1 again. We looked at this every week. That Matthew chapter 1 and verse 2 says, "Abraham begat Isaac, Isaac begat Jacob, and Jacob begat Judas and his brethren." So it's amazing that such a simple scripture so far has provided us so much insight into this study already. We mentioned before that it seems like maybe sometimes we overlook the genealogies because it's not the easiest reading, and maybe we don't feel like we can benefit quite as much from them as other parts of the Bible. But here we are. Every week during this study, we've used the genealogies to prove prophecies of Jesus. So that's the first place we can see in the New Testament for the fulfillment that Jesus will be from the tribe of Judah. The second is in Hebrews chapter 7 and verse 14. It says, For it is evident that our Lord sprang out of Judah, of which tribe Moses spake nothing concerning priesthood. So there's a lot going on here in Hebrews chapter 7. We won't have the time necessarily to go through the whole context, but at least here in verse number 14, the Hebrew writer plainly tells us that Jesus sprang out of the tribe of Judah. So the context of Hebrews chapter 7 is talking about Melchizedek and his priesthood, and how Christ is a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. That's in verse number 17. Let me turn over here. So in Hebrews 7, verse 17, "For he testifies, thou art a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek." This is talking about Christ, who will be a priest forever after the order of Melchizedek. So in the Old Testament law, we know that only those of the tribe of Judah were allowed to be priests. The priests had to come from the tribe of Judah. So the writer is making a point that Jesus is a priest, but since he is from the tribe of Judah and not the tribe of Levi, that he's not a priest according to the Old Testament law. And let's look at verse number 15 and 16. And it is yet far more evident, for that after the similitude of Melchizedek there ariseth another priest, who is made not after the law of a carnal commandment, but after the power of an endless life. So he's a priest. Jesus is a priest of another priesthood, one that is an eternal priesthood. So I like how in the middle of, again, we don't have time to go through the entire context of Hebrews chapter 7, but I like how in the middle of this, rather complex discussion of Christ's priesthood here in Hebrews chapter 7, we get this confirmation that Jesus was of the tribe of Judah just all of a sudden, right? The Hebrew writer just plainly tells us all of a sudden that Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, but it fits within the context of what he's talking about with Jesus' priesthood, making a distinction that it's not the Old Testament priesthood that he's talking about. But I think it shows us that, when we're studying the Bible, it's almost like we shouldn't blink or else you'll miss something. So there's always something there. There's so much for us to read and study. So I just thought that was interesting. So our third fulfillment we can see in the New Testament is in Revelation chapter 5. We see that Jesus is from the tribe of Judah. Let's look to Revelation chapter 5. I think this gives us some good insight as well. So I'm going to read the first 10 verses of Revelation chapter 5. And I saw on the right hand of him that sat on the throne a book written, and on the backside sealed with 7 seals. And I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, Who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals thereof? And no man in heaven nor in earth, neither under the earth, was able to open the book, neither to look thereon. And I wept much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look thereon. And one of the elders saith unto me, Weep not, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, hath prevailed to open the book and to loose the 7 seals thereof. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the 4 beasts, and in the midst of the elders, stood a lamb, as it had been slain, having 7 horns and 7 eyes, which are the 7 spirits of God sent forth unto all the earth. And he came and took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. And when he had taken the book, the 4 beasts and 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them harps and golden vials full of odors, which are the prayers of saints. And they sung a new song, saying, Thou art worthy to take the book and to open the seals thereof, for thou wast slain and hast redeemed us to God by thy blood out of every kindred and tongue and people and nation, and hast made us into our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. So John is showing us, or John has shown the vision of God's throne, and he's telling us the vision of God's throne here in Revelation chapter 5. So there's the book that's sealed with 7 seals, and it's presented, but no one is worthy to open its seals. Verse number 3 says that no man in heaven, in earth, or under the earth was able to open the book or even to look upon it. So now, John it shows him weeping here because no one is there that's worthy to open the book. So that is, no one's worthy to open the book until we see the Lion of the tribe of Judah appear. Now all of a sudden, he is worthy of opening the book, and he's the only one that is worthy of opening the book, is what we're told. So now, why is the Lion of the tribe of Judah worthy of opening the book? So I think that those are there are 2 questions. Who is the Lion of the tribe of Judah, and why is he worthy of opening the book? So verse 9 tells us that he is worthy because he was slain and has redeemed us to God. And then verse number 6 shows that the Lion of the tribe of Judah as a lamb that has been slain. And then verse 5 also refers to him as the root of David. So we think about these 3 things together. He was slain and redeemed us to God. He was the Lion of the tribe of Judah is presented as a lamb that had been slain, and he's referred to as the root of David. So if we go back to Revelation chapter 22, verse number 16, we looked at this verse last week when we talked about Jesus as the bright and shining star, because in Revelation chapter 22, 16, he refers to him. Jesus is talking, he refers to himself. He says, I, Jesus, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David and the brightening morning star. So, verse number 5, Revelation 5 and verse 5, refers to the line of the tribe of Judah as the root of David. And then we have Jesus here in Revelation chapter 22 referring to himself as the root of David. So I think it's clear we can see that the line of the tribe of Judah is Jesus, not just from the name there, but also from the actions. It says, he's referenced as a lamb that's been slain. He was slain and redeemed us to God. That is no doubt obviously referring to Jesus, right? So I think the context shows us that Jesus is the line of the tribe of Judah. So why is that significant? Well, if we remember in our prophecy in Genesis chapter 49 in verse 9, Judah is referred to as a lion's cub, right? He's mentioned that the tribe of Judah could be considered a cub because of all of the things yet to come for Judah, namely David and Christ. In the last part of that verse, it says, "And as an old lion, who shall rouse him up?" So Young's defines this as cause to rise up. So who's going to cause an old lion to rise up? Obviously, a lion that is fully grown will be much fiercer and tougher than a lion that is a cub. So if I had to face a lion, I could choose between a lion's cub and a full-grown lion. I think I would choose the lion's cub. We understand that the grown lion is much larger, much stronger, much fiercer, much more powerful than a lion's cub. So we refer to lions today, we refer to them as the king of the jungle. So, who would dare to approach a fully grown lion and cause him to rise up? Who would, you're not going to take a stick and prod a fully grown lion because obviously he could kill you and, very easily. It would be nothing to him. So, but it's sort of a rhetorical question. I mean, who would approach a lion? Who would cause a grown lion and cause him to rise up? So we see in Revelation chapter 5 and verse 5, the Lion of the tribe of Judah is said to have prevailed, and that is why he is worthy of opening the book of the seven seals. I think this shows, the ultimate fulfillment of Jacob's blessing to Judah. In Genesis chapter 49, Judah was a cub, and now in Revelation chapter 5, Judah, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, is a full-grown lion, and he has prevailed over his enemies. Jesus has certainly prevailed over all enemies. And because of this, Revelation chapter 5 and verse 12 is absolutely true. It says, "Worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing." I think we can see that there's a good comparison between Judah as a cub in Genesis chapter 49, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. He's prevailed over his enemies. We can think that as a fully grown lion. He's grown. He's much stronger than the cub. He's even prevailed over all of his enemies. And we can see Jesus as the Lion of the tribe of Judah in that sense. So going back just really briefly, when we talked about Shiloh in Genesis chapter 49, who is Shiloh? He whose it is, that which belongs to him. If we look at that in the context of Revelation chapter 5, the Lion of the tribe of Judah being the only one that's there in heaven, on the earth, or below the earth, that's worthy of opening the seals of the book. We can say that's his book, he who it is. And then we have also the reference here that he's prevailed over his enemies. He was slain for us. So I think all things considered, we can go back and say, okay, Shiloh has to be Jesus because look at the comparison there. He's who it is. The book in Revelation, he's the only one that can open the book. So that's our study this morning. Looks like I'm about maybe 5 minutes over. So we'll go ahead and conclude this study. Again, hope this has been beneficial to everyone. I've enjoyed it this far, and we'll continue this for the next several weeks. Thank you.